Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time for your weekly wrap-up. Another Monday is here yet again, and I want to begin first by thanking our newest Patreon supporter, David Judaica, who contributed via the Patreon. So thank you, David, and to everyone who has been contributing and watching and subscribing, because we are almost to 102,000 subscribers now. So things are continuing to move, and hopefully we'll get to 200,000 in less time than it took to get to 100,000. A lot of you did write in to ask when the silver play button will show up. I don't know. I didn't get my offer yet to fill out with my address, so I'm hoping probably by like September, October, we should see it. I'll do an unboxing on the channel for all of you so we can celebrate the 100,000 mark yet again. We don't get another trophy until we hit 1 million subscribers. That might take a little bit longer, but we'll see. So what do we do this week? Well, we got a bunch of stuff done. I got the video uploaded on Amazon Prime Video and how you can download movies to your SD card for free as part of your subscription. It works great. In fact, my daughter has it on her Android device right now, and my daily bandwidth consumption or data consumption on my home cable account has dropped tremendously because she's been watching everything stored on the card versus continually going out to Netflix for it. So this has been a great thing for me. I'm sure it might be good for you. We also looked at the Samsung CF390 24-inch curved display, and it was interesting. I got a lot of neat feedback on this video because some people said the curved display is kind of a gimmick. Others actually found it very useful. So I think it's one of those things. It either works for you or it doesn't. And of course, there are choices as to whether or not you want the curved display or not. But the price point on this one is about where other 24-inch 1080p displays are at least in comparable quality. Of course, you can find cheaper ones out there, but this is a name brand, nice display, cool review, definitely worth checking that out. I got a master playlist link down below in the video description. And a lot of you wrote in asking me to get a Lenovo IdeaPad 710S, so I did, and we reviewed that one, and you can see what that one looks like and how it stacks up with other 13-inch Ultrabooks. It's got a i5 processor in there, so a little faster than some of those Core M devices we usually see at that form factor. And we looked at the Elgato HD60S, and this is the premium version of their USB-based game capture device. And as you'll see in the video that I shot, it takes a lot of horsepower to use this thing to its full potential. So I think unless you have a nice desktop computer with a quad-core i7 processor, this might not work all that well for you. But definitely check out the review and see what it looks like. And maybe it does fit into your hardware specifications, and it might be worth using, provided you don't use the Elgato software. And again, we cover all that in the review. Now it's time for a new segment called On My Mind, where I talk about things that came up over the course of the week that interested me. And this topic, unfortunately, has been talked to death on every channel you probably watch, but I definitely wanted to get my 2 cents in on it also, because I'd like to just give you my perspective on this. So in case you haven't heard about this game called No Man's Sky, it's a very vast space trading and exploration game where you fly around in your little spaceship and visit planets, pick up resources, sell the resources, and build out your character and try to get to the center of the galaxy or the universe that they have created in this game. And what's unique about this versus other games that have attempted this before is that they have developed a procedurally generated universe of something about like along the lines of 19 quintillion planets. So many that you will never visit, likely, a planet that another player has come across. And every player can plant their flag on the planet and name it after whatever they want, provided it's a G-rated, family-friendly name. They do, I guess, edit some of the names that are not so appropriate. And what's been cool about this game for me is that as a kid, I used to play games like this where you're trading resources, usually with a text interface or some very rudimentary graphics on an 8-bit computer. And what Hello Games, the developer of No Man's Sky, did was actually create what was often in your imagination when you were playing these games as a youngster. And that's what has really grabbed me about this. They developed this atmosphere to the game, and I'll pull up some screenshots here so you can see what it looks like. A very consistent art style, even though all these planets are generated not by artists, but by math. So every planet you land on has some random algorithm applied to it. They use its distance from its sun to calculate what some of the conditions might be on that planet, and then the planet gets generated around that. And what you see is exactly what another player would see if they were to visit that very same planet. So there's some persistence to this universe, and because they used algorithm and didn't have to design every planet themselves, they were able to do what you see here and make it so cool. And it's amazing when you think about the fact that, sure, they had to develop all the art elements and define what certain numbers would mean visually. The fact that you can get this kind of beautiful imagery out of something that is completely randomly generated is just amazing to me. And it takes your breath away a little bit more at the beginning than it does as you've been playing for a few hours, because it does get a bit repetitious. I'm sure you've heard other reviewers talk about that. And what I like what the developers have done here is that once it gets to a repetition point, and I got to the point where I'm like, all right, what do I do now? It starts pushing you harder to get towards the center, and some of the story elements begin ramping in. And I think, and I echo what a lot of other reviewers have said, is to really give it a chance and put the time in, grind it out a little bit more than you think you might want to, because once you get to a certain point in the game, it really starts ramping up the story and getting you pushed into finding your way to the center of the universe there. So they've really done some cool stuff here. What's most interesting about this to me is the fact that the development team that put this together is maybe 12 or 13 people, at least at the time that they developed a lot of the core technologies. And what speaks to creativity in my mind has always been people that work within very limited resources and within limitations of their medium. And these folks wanted to make a game as big as this, and they figured out a way to do it. And it's not the first time procedural generation has been done, but it's the first time it's been done in this way, I think, at least in a way that's very approachable and accessible to many players. So much so that Sony has invested their marketing muscle into selling the game to their PS4 customers, which is what's led to all the hype about it. It's not a perfect game. It needs a lot of work, especially on performance on the PC side. There's some gameplay elements that are frustrating to new and old gamers alike that I think they need to work on, but they've done something really special here, and I'm really excited to see what comes up next. What I like a lot about this too is the fact that it is very simple to play. It is not a game where you have to learn a lot of navigation and everything else. You just point your ship in the direction you want to go and you get there. All the planets are unnaturally close together, so it doesn't take long to travel between them, but they're all very different when you do arrive. They have very successfully created a game where you get a feel for the vastness of this universe that you're in. There's a map that they have where you can see all these different stars that you can travel to, but also your player just feels very lonely. Everybody in the game feels very lonely because of this vastness, and there's no connection or story elements that lead to any kind of friendship or character generation. You just meet these people these aliens along the way as you're making your journey, and it's really cool. I think they've accomplished what they have described in the past. There are certainly things that you can nitpick about the multiplayer stuff and whatever, but like I said, I haven't played a game this much in 5 or 10 years, and my hat's off to them if I had a hat on, because this is a great example of the kind of creativity we saw on PC games maybe 15 or 20 years ago that's gone lacking for a long time. This is something new and different, and I think it's the start of a lot of hopefully more risky kinds of endeavors by development houses looking to do this kind of game that is just not like the others. Because for me, a lot of the games that have been coming out recently, the reason why I haven't played that many is that they all seem the same to me, and they have, they're so polished and awesome and sure, great, but this is something that really speaks to the kind of game player that I am, I guess, and that's why I like it so much. So I'm going to stop talking about it because I can go on all night about it. Maybe I'll do a whole show on it or something, but I'm really quite pleased with that. All right, now that we're back to Earth, I wanted to mention my adventures in cable modems too, because I had to buy a new cable modem this week. And for any of you who have been on some of my live streams or been watching my live streams, occasionally we get these weird dropouts where it just stops working all of a sudden. I couldn't figure out what was going on. The internet worked fine when I wasn't streaming. It just was whenever I started streaming, things would get all wacky. And then other odd things started happening, like when I was uploading videos to my YouTube channel, I wasn't able to actually do anything else on the internet. And I tried different routers, and it was just a real spotty thing that was happening off and on. And I called the Comcast folks up, and they sent somebody over. We tested everything. Everything looked fine. Even the modem initially looked okay to him until he noticed that it was on their end-of-life list. So it wasn't something that they weren't supporting, but it was something that they called end-of-life. I had an older Motorola DOCSIS 3 modem. So I went out and bought the successor to that modem, the Era Surfboard modem here, and it changed everything. In fact, my internet connection has never been better. So hopefully my new live streams will pick up steam. But you might want to look and see on Comcast's website, if you do a search for Comcast end-of-life modem, you can see if your modem is on that list, because apparently some things that they've done in their configuration required a few more downstream channels than my modem was able to link up with, and I think that was leading to some of my issues. This one's been working much, much better. So if you are running with your own modem or renting an older one from Comcast, you might want to check with them and see if they have something new for you, because you might see a vast improvement in performance if you are having trouble with your internet. And in the news this week, there was a lot of excitement for us Star Wars fans because the new Rogue One trailer dropped. And in case you haven't been following all the business of Star Wars recently, George Lucas, the beloved creator, sold his creation to Disney for $4 billion. Not a bad retirement exit package, if you ask me. With that, now we're seeing more and more films getting created in the Star Wars universe. We had The Force Awakens last year. We're going to have Episode 8 next year. And this year we get a one-off story set in that universe. And this is really a prequel film, Rogue One, to the original Star Wars movies. What's going to happen in this film is that they're going to steal the Death Star plans and get them to Princess Leia. And apparently this film ends where the 1977 film begins. So this is a true prequel in every sense of the word, and it looks great. I'm hoping it actually is as great as it looks in the trailer, because I'm very nervous about this new direction for Star Wars, where we get a new film every year. It used to be a very scarce commodity, essentially, where you would have a new Star Wars film once in a decade or once in a generation, and now we're looking at a new film every year, and it's only going to take one bad film to really ruin everything. So hopefully they get every one of these correct. There were rumors that they did a lot of reshooting on this film to get it right, to the right feel. So hopefully it doesn't disappoint fans, because it's there's always a tenuous relationship here. And even George Lucas lost his fans. The guy that created it all could not create a movie that his fans wanted. And really, I think what's happened with Star Wars is that the fans have taken it away from George Lucas, essentially. And I think he made the right move by selling it to Disney, because the films now are being created by fans of the original trilogy. All the writers and directors that are on these new films were people that either grew up with or were greatly inspired by what George Lucas created with his original trilogy, which is why we're seeing these new films really stay true to that model, because that is what I think fans want to see, with some new directions and new subtle changes, but nothing that is completely unrecognizable. And I think for a lot of folks, the original prequel trilogy just wasn't a recognizable film as a Star Wars film. And George Lucas wanted them to all be different, and I don't think that's what fans wanted. So Rogue One is, I think, going to be fan service, but hopefully very good fan service, and I'm very eager to check it out and see what it looks like. And it's another week, which means it's time for another high-profile crowdfunding disaster. This time it's the Jibo robot, which was a successfully funded project on Indiegogo, where they got about $400 or $500 out of each backer. 2 years later, there still is no product in those backers' hands, and they've announced this week that anyone outside of North America is not getting theirs. Now, they are doing a refund by check to those who are not going to get their Jibos, but I'm sure all of these backers appreciate having given this company an interest-free loan for 2 years and never got a product out of it, and nobody has it yet either, for that matter. So this is kind of indicative of many Indiegogo projects, because they don't require these companies putting things on their site to have any kind of prototype working before they move forward with it. Now, this company, Jibo, has had a bunch of venture capital investment, but still no product to speak of, and I think their window is closing, because we're seeing a lot of the functionality that Jibo was going to have with things like the Amazon Echo and other voice-commanded devices that are very quickly making their way to market, much faster than this company was able to get theirs going with. So we'll see where this goes, but a lot of folks are not happy right now. I think they sold Jibos into 45 different countries, and only 2 of them are actually going to get the product in the end, and everyone's just going to get their money back, but no interest for all of the contributions that those monies made to building that company, which is a big disappointment. Another reason why to be careful on those crowdfunding sites. And now it's time for some Q&A, where we take a look at some viewer comments that caught my eye this week. This one came in from Andrew Simpson on my review of the TP-Link AV500. This is one of those power line network adapters, and the way this worked, I reviewed it about 2 years ago, is that you plug one end into your where your router is, into an outlet, and then the other end has a Wi-Fi access point on it. So the network traffic goes through your power lines to the other end, and then you get Wi-Fi at the other end that then transmits back over the power to the device that's hooked up closer to your router. And people don't have very good experiences often with these power line adapters, especially now as we're streaming high definition video and 4K video. Our data needs are growing, and these power line adapters, although they might have felt like they were working 5 or 10 years ago, now don't deliver the kind of network performance that people expect. Theoretically, they can bring those speeds, but even in my testing in my house with relatively new wiring, I was never getting anywhere close to the speeds that they were advertising, maybe 8 or 12 megabits per second on a good day, but generally I wasn't getting there. So it looks like TP-Link is offering a voluntary refund to customers who are not happy with their TP-Link power line adapter, specifically the AV500, which is what I reviewed a few years ago. So if you have one of those and haven't been happy with it, they will take it back apparently. So that's a pretty good deal. You can check out the link here on Andrew Simpson's comment to me there. So nice of TP-Link to recognize sometimes that their products don't live up to expectations and to own that. So that's nice that they're doing that for customers who aren't happy. And our next question comes in from High Voltage 12V. And when I was complaining about the Lenovo power adapters in my last two Lenovo laptop reviews, I was talking about how the prongs on the power adapters don't fold back in. And apparently there's a patent that Apple got for that. And here's what it looks like. So it looks like that is why you can't fold the prongs down on the Lenovo power adapters, because Apple thought of it first. And they have patented that, like everything gets patented these days. So that is why we can't have nice things. So no foldable power adapters for you. Now, remember last week I talked about how Nintendo had a bunch of Nintendo Power magazines pulled down from archive.org. Well, UltraBall69 writes in this week about another recent takedown by Nintendo. This time a fan had created a remake of a classic Game Boy Metroid game. Nintendo went after them. They also went after the Pokemon remake that just was announced, Pokemon Uranium, another fan creation. None of these things are being sold, by the way. These are things Nintendo just doesn't want out there. And I wanted to do a compare and contrast here with what Sega did with Sonic. So we'll take a look at this. This is called Retro Sonic, and it was made by a guy named Christian Whitehead, who called himself the Taxman. And in 2008, he made a new game engine that very accurately recreated Sonic the Hedgehog, and he made his own Sonic the Hedgehog game, and you can still get it right now. And Sega has never tried to go after him or take down any of his stuff. In fact, they hired him, and he is now working for Sega as an independent developer, working on all these Sonic games that we're getting on mobile platforms. So if you have like an Apple TV or an Android or iPhone and you wanted to play Sonic the Hedgehog, the app that you would download from the App Store by Sega is something Christian Whitehead wrote. And in fact, he is now working on the new Sonic the Hedgehog game that was just announced for the 25th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog. So he's actually been brought into the Sega family here for being a fan who could create really good work. And you can still download his original creation there. And just really shows you the difference here between how Nintendo treats its fans versus how Sega treated their fans. And I think it might be because Sega is no longer on a single hardware platform. Maybe if Sega was still selling game consoles, they'd be more sensitive to this. But there is room to allow fans to do things out of love for what you have created as a company. Star Wars, just to speak of Star Wars, does it with their fan movies. They don't go after fan-made creations unless they start selling them or something like that. So there is, I think, some room in intellectual property law here to allow this kind of activity going on, but aggressively going after those who try to make money from those creations. And I just don't get it. Even with YouTube here, I don't review a lot of Nintendo products because Nintendo often goes after people, whether they have a right to or not, and forcing people into their own revenue sharing program where they can approve your content, and if they do, then they even take a portion of what little revenue you'll get from that content. It really isn't a good way to go here. And what's been interesting, though, about how Nintendo has been doing these takedowns lately, both in the case of this Metroid game and the Pokemon game, is that they're not going after the developers directly. They're serving cease and desist letters on all of the sites that are hosting the downloads for those games. So they are trying to maybe avoid a fan uproar by making these things harder to get. The problem with this is that by forcing people to find these things on torrents and other places, it opens the door for malware and other security risks for fans of Nintendo to play these fan-made creations. I don't know why they just let these folks do what they do and follow Sega's direction here and maybe hire some of these people that can really breathe new life into their games. Because as we're seeing, I think I can accurately predict that little mini Nintendo console that is coming out for the holidays from Nintendo, which plays all the old 8-bit games, is going to sell better than the Wii U ever did. And that is really proof positive that there's still an appetite for redoing some of this retro stuff and making it work on modern hardware. So we'll see what happens there. So now it's time for the winner of our big giveaway of the Kangaroo Pro, and that is Robert Roberts, and that is his real name. I checked. Everything is on the up and up here. So Robert, you are the winner. I'm going to email you. Get back to me with your shipping information when I do, and we will get this device shipped out to you. Congratulations. We had another about 380 to 400 people that entered in this time. So another great giveaway. We'll be doing more giveaways in the near future, and I am working on something. You'll all be very pleased to hear this. Those of you outside the United States, I'm working on 2 different things that I'll be able to offer to international viewers. So stay tuned. We're going to have some stuff, hopefully, that will work for everyone around the world, not just in the United States. And now it's time for some Q&A for you. And some of you have been asking when I plan to do my Intel build of a low-cost Intel gaming computer. I definitely want to get started on that. I actually have some parts already, but I wanted to get some advice from all of you on motherboards and processors. I'm trying to keep this thing around maybe $300 to $500, because I think once we put a GPU on this, it'll certainly drive cost up a little bit. I'm going to buy one of these test bed motherboard things so I can very easily remove components and compare different things. So give me some good advice on an i3 motherboard and processor. And I think I probably want to do a DDR4 chipset as far as its RAM configuration is concerned, because I think we're at that point where DDR4 is really where we should focus on. So let me know in the comments below what I should be looking for parts. Again, processor and motherboard. I'm going to try to get some RAM in from a few of our fans of the show and kind of piece together a gaming PC that we'll use without a GPU first, and then try some different GPU options, and then maybe give away the motherboard and other components later on after we had some time to play around with it. So what's coming up this week? I got a bunch of stuff, some things that I'm not sure I'm going to do just yet, but I am definitely going to get to this portable printer. I think this is probably the third time I mentioned it. I finally got it booted up today. I had a emergency situation, nothing serious, but an emergency situation at work where I needed a printer to print out envelopes very quickly, and I had this in the box in my office, and I was just cranking out envelopes. So we'll talk about this mobile printer and a bunch of other things this week as well. We'll see what strikes my fancy as we get through the week here. Definitely let me know what you'd like to see more of too in the comments below. Now, if you want to help the channel, you can give to my Patreon at Lon.TV/Patreon. We also have my YouTube fan funding at Lon.TV. That's a one-time contribution mechanism. If you do give via the YouTube fan funding, let me know down in the comments that you did it so I can thank you and add you to the credit roll, because YouTube doesn't tell me when people do that. So do let me know about that. And you can connect with the channel. I've been very bad about email over the last 2 weeks. I'm going to be doing another newsletter hopefully tomorrow or the next day. You can subscribe to my email list there at Lon.TV/email. Lon.TV/Facebook is our Facebook page where I post a lot of stuff and go live from time to time. Now that my internet is better, I'm going to try, I have to upgrade my TriCaster to a new software update, but I might be able to do a simultaneous YouTube and Facebook live stream. I just want to try it to see if it's possible. I think it is. Lon.TV/Reddit is where our Reddit page is, and then we have the store where I sell a lot of used items that I've reviewed on the channel previously, things that I bought and now I am reselling, so you'll get a good discount on something that is relatively new. I've been clearing out some of the inventory, but there's always more that's going in there, so definitely check it out if you're looking for something that I reviewed previously. So that'll do it for this week's weekly wrap-up. Tell me what you thought about No Man's Sky and everything else that's on your mind in the comments below. And this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.